All right, welcome to the Unfazed, Unedited podcast, where we provide commentary on complicated topics in an uncomplicated format. I'm Dr. Shaunna Payne Gold, and I go by she, her, hers pronouns. And Dr. Lisa, look, we got to stop doing this. We got to stop not recording several podcasts before we
Yep,
actually hit the
I
record
know.
button. But how are you doing?
I am doing okay. Yes. Hanging in with the heat, the summer heat. Um,
Oh,
I
yes.
feel like my buckling to the air conditioning is happening more frequently these days.
You need one of those cold blankets, Lisa. I've seen them on, I forget where I saw them, probably on Instagram, but it's like a cooling blanket of some sort. And I'm like,
Oh,
yeah, I need that because I don't like being hot, but I don't like being uncovered either. So gotta figure it
interesting.
out.
So that would be cheaper than air conditioning. Maybe I'll look into that. Yeah.
There you go. There you go. Exactly. Exactly. All right. Well, help us get into this word of the week that I literally had never heard of until a few moments ago.
Yes. Okay. So I was either reading an article or listening to a podcast. I do not remember
Per
which
her
it was.
usual. Per her usual.
But this word came up, and it is Groyper. So that's Groyper. And the pod or the article was in relation to the rise in white nationalism. And so Groyper is actually the name of a group of people, a movement, a perspective that is alt-right, white nationalist, and people who align themselves or support Nick Fuentes. So Nick Fuentes' name might be familiar to people. He is, racist, xenophobic, white nationalist guy who has had dinner with our esteemed leader at Mar-a-Lago. And essentially many of the group members that would consider themselves Groypers or in the Groyper movement have really tried to introduce alt-right positions into the mainstream, and many of them were at the January 6th attack on the Capitol. So I'd probably put what's his face? Oh, Miller, Stephen Miller, that delightful guy is probably in this group. Whether or not he believes himself to be in it, I don't know. But essentially, kind of the description that's out on the interwebs related to the Groyper movement is white nationalist, homophobic, nativist, fascist, sexist, anti-Semitic. So all of the great things fall into this movement, and they have a logo,
Wow.
they have a mascot, which some of you might be aware of, this Pepe the Frog. It's a green cartoon frog that I forget how it originated, but it essentially got co-opted and manipulated to the far right movement.
Oh,
And
wow.
so there is
Hmm.
kind of a amphibian version. Well, I guess Pepe the Frog is amphibian, but there's like a distorted version of this Pepe the Frog that is called Groyper. And that is where the name comes from for this collection of people. So it's not a term that I had heard to categorize this group of people. And I think they're younger, they're mostly male. So yeah, so that was a little bit of learning for me. Another term to describe an alt-right, very conservative,
Hmm.
fascist leaning, or just maybe plain fascist movement of men in the
Hmm.
United States currently. So yay.
Oh my goodness. Look, as you were going down the list of ist, I'm thinking, oh my goodness, this is like all things on that social identity wheel of power identities, and all the different forms of oppression that come along with it. So once again, and when I looked up Pepe the Frog, now I know exactly what you're talking about because I've seen it before, but I did not know that there was a name or a,
Yeah.
labeling for it. Exactly. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
Yeah. As an aside, I listened to a podcast years and
Mm.
years ago now. This might even have been pre-Trump one. And it was a discussion of how Pepe the Frog was originally a cartoon. And I think the original artist like didn't design it as a right-wing mascot. And it got co-opted and got like pulled into all of these right-wing forums and kind of discussions unbeknownst, I think, to the artist. I might have that wrong, but I think that its evolution was not how the frog was originally intended. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know if you remember, recently there was a, God, like from the White House Twitter account, which is just
Mm-hmm.
propaganda R us, but
Mm-hmm.
there was an image of Trump walking down a street. It was like a dark street, and he was wearing like a long coat, and it was like blown open. And then in the background, if you look close enough, Pepe the Frog is in it, or the Groyper, I guess.
Oh,
And
wow.
so it's
Uh-huh.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
So there's whether or not that was known to Trump that that image was in there and who put it in there and then pushed it out on the White House account. I don't know, but yeah, so there you go. Groyper.
Oh, goodness. Well, and the other, what you're reminding me of, we've had this conversation before on this podcast of musical artists pushing back and issuing a cease and desist with then 45, but I think it's also happened as 47 of not using their music for certain purposes as well. So this is kind of blowing my mind a bit here because it's making me think of all different forms of art that are co-opted into use for purposes that they were not intended. Let's put it that way. Because I'm imagining the horror of that artist, like, oh my God, that's not what that was for. Mm,
Yeah, and
incredible.
I should probably double check that, or if we have an eager
Mm-hmm.
listener to double check it, because it was a long time ago I listened to that podcast, but that's how I learned about Pepe
Yeah.
the Frog. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm fairly sure that was not the intended use of Pepe the Frog in its
That's incredible.
original form. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Oh my God, incredible. Well, let's stay alert as we may see certain symbols, emblems frequently, and we think we know what they mean, and we may not fully. So this is a aha moment for me hearing this, Lisa. But let's get into phase one. All right, phase one. So this has been a interesting uh consumption of media, once again, social media. But
Mm-hmm.
Lisa, people just completely obliterate social media as always being a negative thing. So I try to lift up the positives when they
Mm-hmm.
occur.
Mm-hmm.
And so on a train ride last month, I heard an episode of, I don't even know what to call it. I'm not sure if it's a show, a podcast, what it is, but I heard the first episode of that on a train. And then I heard the second episode yesterday while I was making dinner, listening to this particular show, if you will. And it's a
Mm-hmm.
show called Den of Kings that Kirk Franklin, the Grammy winning gospel artist, has kind of produced, I guess is the right word, in that he's made a very good faith effort of bringing together 4 or 5 Black men around a dinner table with a wonderful chef that comes in and makes this incredible food, and they get to sit and just chop it up as Black men in America. And I don't know if he's going to make this a recurring series of some sort, but
Mm-hmm.
it has been so powerful for me, Lisa, even as obviously I'm not a Black male, but I'm as proximal as you could probably get to
Yep.
Black men.
Yep.
And but always constantly staying on my learning curve as someone who loves 2 Black men, many Black men, but my 2 in particular that I take care of. And so with that, getting to know their experience more and more. And it was this great eye-opening experience for me because both episodes have featured guests like Derek Hayes, who has, if you have ever heard of Pinky Cole, who started Slutty Vegan, this is her husband that has his own, I think it's like Philly cheesesteak type chain. So
Okay.
Derek Hayes, Jay Jeezy Jenkins, that is a music artist, but considers himself primarily an entrepreneur. Tyler Perry, we've talked about on this podcast before, DC Youngfly, DeVal Ellis, who's a actor, Country Wayne, who's a comedian. The list goes on and on. And they're sitting around a dinner table talking about issues and topics that you kind of feel like the fly on the wall that gets to just
Mm-hmm.
watch. And so it's a concept that we call in dialogue fishbowl, where you're either
Okay.
in the fishbowl or you're out of the fishbowl. But when you're in the fishbowl, you talk amongst yourselves. And those of us who are out of the fishbowl are intentionally out of the fishbowl because we may carry some types of privileges, or we just simply may be an outsider of that group and we have things to observe and learn without our intrusion. on the conversation. And I've listened to both episodes and they've talked about topics, Lisa, like fatherhood, being good husbands, great husbands, business, of course, because the majority of them are entrepreneurs, their definitions of success and legacy.
Mm-hmm.
And as a Black woman sitting back watching both of those episodes, I just felt like it was important to lift up and bring to the podcast because there are so many stereotypes about Black men that these conversations have completely obliterated. But if you're not looking for it, then you won't see it. And Black men are too busy doing a lot of these things that they really don't have time to toot their own horn. So,
Mm-hmm.
for example, there's been multiple studies. There's one specifically that came out from the CDC just last year that talked about, for example, Black fatherhood. And the assumption, the history, and the stereotype all lends itself to Black fathers being absentees when the CDC and a number of other studies have said otherwise. I even have a friend, a former colleague of mine up at Towson, who's doing a study right now on Black fatherhood in the city of Baltimore. The overwhelming majority of these studies are saying that Black fathers are highly involved. I found one stat that talked about Black fathers who live with their children. They're more likely than white or Hispanic fathers to bathe, change, dress their children, more likely to eat meals with them every day, more likely to help them with their homework and so forth. And there's a couple other studies that have not published the findings yet, but they're talking about involved Black fathers who happen not to live with their children, but still are highly involved. And so all of that debunking these stereotypes, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm trying to figure out, even as someone who shares one identity with these groups, I'm still wrestling with why don't we have vessels of space for more of these conversations to happen so that we can continue to debunk the stereotypes and so Black men don't feel isolated, alone, unsupported, or just irrelevant to conversations about family and children specifically.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'll have to go back and look for it, Lisa. It's been a few years ago where there's an organization that has national chapters called 100 Black Men. And I remember one school making a call to say, hey, we don't have a lot of dads that are there at drop off and pick up for the kids. I think there was like a field day or something else going on. Could you send, they didn't even ask for the whole chapter. They said, could you send a few dads to come and help us with these events? We need volunteers. The whole freaking chapter showed up, Lisa. I mean, they had men on both sides of the sidewalk where kids were walking to school for half a mile with these dads like cheering for them, like, have a great day at
Mm-hmm.
school, and all these other things to get their day started positively. Well, that took like a couple of emails, and all these dads that, you
Mm-hmm.
know, are Black men showing up to say, we support our kids, whether you acknowledge it or not. We are pillars of the community, whether you support it or not. I'm just questioning why we don't hold space for those narratives because Lisa, you and I are very much about telling the full stories of people that often don't get amplified. I think Den of Kings is starting to do it, but I'm just questioning myself now, like, why aren't we doing this more broadly? We need to do it more broadly.
Well, I think you know why it's not happening more broadly, right? Because it's a counter narrative that goes against the white supremacist one. I mean,
Oh,
I mean,
always, always.
broadly, like outside of the Black community, that's why
Mm-hmm.
these forums don't exist. I mean, I think that that's
Mm-hmm.
accidentally intentional, you know? Um,
Yes, 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 yes.
so, but
Uh,
I bet there are community level um groups that are happening nationally that you're just not aware of, right? Like this is
mm-hmm.
this is a high profile TV show slash podcast slash televised or audio discussion, right? By someone
Uh-huh.
who has a lot of resources and the means.
Yes.
But so there's probably a lot more that's happening under the radar that is maybe just really localized in communities around the country.
Mm-hmm.
But I suppose to your point, that's good, right? But how do we
Yeah.
then transition those localized groups partnerships, whatever you want to call it, to the national level so that they gain more recognition, which then
Mm-hmm.
elevates that counter narrative in a way that is really transformational versus
Mm-hmm.
keeping it siloed, I suppose, in different localized spaces. I mean, I'm guessing
Yeah.
I might be wrong. I'd be surprised if there aren't initiatives like this happening across the country. But I think the larger problem that you're pointing to is
Mm-hmm.
that we don't have a national, there isn't a national, powerful, forceful conversation that is enabling people writ large to
Yeah.
understand that these narratives that have been painted about Black men are incorrect, in the
Mm-hmm.
sense that they're incorrect and born of kind of a system and a structure, laws,
There you go.
processes that have
There you
been
go.
created to oppress Black men in particular.
Well, and yes, I was hoping that you would go into system area because of course I'm thinking that too. Even as we look at the research on this very topic of Black fatherhood, I'm thinking to myself, like the study by the CDC.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Lisa, you and I both know the how a research question is structured. Well, even the research question assumes something, right? The research
Right.
question
Right.
assumes systems of Black fathers, either their involvement is predicated on whether they live together or not, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or primary custody of one person over the other. Or like I've run into this several times where I'm like, no, I don't want to have a uh, primary or custodial parent because we both have 50-50 custody of these children. But the systems down to the forms that we complete for children in our society are not even happen. So my children live 50-50, 50% with me, 50% with their father. The system of even asking that research question doesn't
Mm-hmm.
necessarily include us because it's the assumption that there's going to be a power dynamic there where one parent has the children more than the other. One is going to be inherently more involved than the other. When
Mm-hmm.
I say, when I, for example, say single mother, I don't say that in the stereotypical context of a single parent with no father to be found. I'm saying single as in I'm not married and mother as in I have two children. Co-parenting exists. Well, they don't, there's not systemically a place for us even to have that conversation, which then paints a skewed picture of fathers,
Mm-hmm.
which is
Mm-hmm.
unfortunate, you know. So we've talked about this before in regard to just systemic leanings towards things. So, for example, I've talked about this on the podcast in probably the first year of this podcast, Lisa, where I'd fill out paperwork and I would intentionally list all of their dad's contact information because at the time he was working from home and I had to go into an office because he could get to the children quicker in case of emergency,
Yeah.
just logistically. But 9 times out of 10, who are they calling?
You. Yep. Yep.
Like our system leans into that thinking that you mentioned as far as systems aren't even how can I say, systems aren't set up to tell the full and accurate story of Black fatherhood, Black manhood, Black success, Black legacy. It's just not set, it's not set up for that.
I think there's a writ large problem with, or a presumption in our legal system when we're talking about custody and such and divorce, that kids are better with their mother, right? Like, I think fathers of all racial identities get shortchanged
Yes,
structurally.
yes, 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 yes.
Um, so I think that calling you instead of him is likely to have been a reality for a mother, regardless of racial identity. But I do think there's an extra layer here that likely gets missed in analyses of those systems around
Mm-hmm.
parenting and custody and who is and is not a good parent and who is and is not present as a parent, right?
Mm.
Like, so I think
Mm-hmm.
there's a problem across all identity groups, and then it is just amplified and
Yes,
um,
yes.
more problematic when we start to look at that racialized understanding of parenthood, to your
Mm-hmm.
point around
Yeah.
people and who has power in those systems, who has power in the legal systems, in the educational systems, in
Mm-hmm.
the like educational schooling systems where
Mm-hmm.
those assumptions are going to be made, and we know it's like predominantly white people, right? So they're operating within an unequal parenting system to begin with, and then they're layering on some
Yeah.
dangerous and inaccurate assumptions about Black men in particular.
Oh
um
yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, now let me I'll give you a funny that's actually a more recent one, Lisa. So for our listeners, my youngest son just had a tryout for a big travel team that this is relevant to the story, Lisa. I went online to register him for that upon agreement in co-parenting. We agreed. I was at the computer quicker so I could register him to try out. And we're sitting home because the tryout process is there's 2 days of tryouts. If you don't get a congratulations email after the first day of tryout, then you need to come back for the second day of tryout. So I'm the one that registered him. I'm refreshing my email all day, like, please let it be the first day so we don't have to go back out in, 90-degree heat and watch another day of tryouts. Well, when we got the email confirming that he had made the team, not only did I not get it, it went to dad who did not register him for this sport
mm,
at all. And the reason why we showed up for the second day of tryouts is because we're expecting it to come to mom, not to dad. We missed it. We got the email at 3:30 when tryouts were at 5. Had we seen it at 3:30, we wouldn't have gone back out there for a second
right,
day.
right.
But the reality is we were working in a system that did not make logical sense because sports goes to dad and
Yes,
academics went
yes.
to mom,
Yeah, yeah. So it's really messed up in multiple ways. And I
despite both of us being listed as contacts. So it wasn't like they had to choose, just send it to everybody, just to be sure.
right, but they did choose, and
Sent
they
to dad.
chose. Yeah, they chose. They made an assumption of the
Hello,
choice. Yeah,
hello, hello.
yeah.
Exactly.
I think what is most sad about this discussion and you
Mm-hmm.
bringing up these studies that are that are doing some work to debunk those myths and damaging stereotypes is that we're probably not going to see many more of those studies over the next 3.5 years, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
investigating, quantitatively and qualitatively the experience of Black fathers in this country and the ways in which their parenting is facilitated or hindered is
Mm.
highly unlikely to be on the
Yeah.
list of quote unquote valuable research studies, despite the fact that they are tremendously valuable in terms of kind of the real impact of what it can do to
Yeah.
counter this really bad narrative. And so this
Mm-hmm.
show Den of Kings becomes
Mm-hmm.
exponentially more important, right?
Oh
And
yeah.
and more shows like it, because we are now going to have a void. I
That's
mean, there's
right.
already limited research to begin with, right? But it's starting to creep up, from what I understand
That's
you said.
it. That's it.
And now we're going to go backwards. So that just makes this Den of Kings like extraordinarily more important
Mm-hmm.
on in to forward the national conversation.
Yes, 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 yes,
Mm-hmm.
exactly. Exactly. So I don't know because as of the time of this recording, there's only 2 episodes of it, if you will, but I'm hopeful, fingers and toes crossed, that there will be more of them because each episode is a little bit different, but all of it shines that spotlight on the uniqueness of Black men's experiences as a community, but also individually as individual men. So I'm just hopeful to keep watching and learning as I listen to their stories, because unfortunately, uh, what did we say, Lisa, when we talked about it's not quite, well, maybe it is a counter narrative, but my feelings about the word revisionist history. Usually
Mm-hmm.
revisionist history is labeled as oh, let's go erase the old history and add the new. And I'm like, no, when you know better, you do better. It's kind of my
Right,
version of
right.
revisionist history. When we know better about the information, then we share better and we understand more fully rather than just jumping to assumptions here. So.
Mhm.
But if you get a chance, watch Den of Kings, which is on Kirk Franklin's YouTube channel. And I just subscribe to make sure that I don't miss them when they pop up in my feed, but hopefully you'll do the same. But yeah, it's a pretty cool show and I'm hooked. I'm hooked.
Well, I think we can probably put the link in our show notes too, right? So people can get there
Absolutely.
easily. Yeah.
Yep. Awesome. Will do.
All right, let's move on to phase two. All right. So, oh dear. So I think I Instagrammed you or texted you and was like, Colorado strikes again. So I'm really not clear why Colorado does these things. It's not really the state, it's people in the state. But there is now a Colorado couple in Colorado Springs. They're a Christian couple who run a bookstore called, oh goodness, let me find it here. What is it? Born Again Used Books. And they are challenging a new state law that has expanded the definition of gender expression in the Anti-Discrimination Act to include chosen names. So, meaning that if you intentionally misgender someone or use a different name than their chosen name, then that would potentially be a violation of the Colorado Anti-Discrimination Act. So that bill that made that amendment, it did other things too, but that piece of it just came into effect. It was just signed in 2025 at the end of the 2025 legislative session. So,
Mm-hmm.
so backstory, right? You have the Masterpiece Bake Shop cake making case that went all the way up to the Supreme Court that they found in favor
Yep.
of the baker that it's creative expression, or no, actually, I think that was ruled on a technicality, but essentially can't make a
Mm-hmm.
baker bake cakes for gay couples if it's against their religion, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
and then you've got 303
Incredible.
Creative versus Elenis, which was a couple of years ago, where a web designer who had never been asked to design a website for a gay couple's wedding, didn't actually at that moment in time do any website design for weddings. Like that wasn't even a thing that they did. So not only was it they had never been asked, they didn't even do wedding design, but maybe in the future they could, and they would want the ability to say
Right.
no to a gay couple, right?
Right.
And so there wasn't even a case. There wasn't even something that had threatened this designer's livelihood with a claim of discrimination, but that went all the way up to the Supreme Court. And of course, web design is a creative endeavor. And so we can't
Yeah.
make them, speak in a way that would violate their First Amendment religious rights. So, and now we have case number 3 related to LGBT equality in the guise of this new statute that adds chosen name to the Colorado Anti-Discrimination Act. And so these two people are basically challenging the law, and they're arguing that the new law is a violation of the First Amendment rights, forcing, that is a word that they're using, them into speech they disagree with or that goes against their deeply held religious beliefs. And they are being defended by the lovely Alliance Defending Freedom, which is the same legal group that
Oh
did
no.
303 Creative, and I believe they're the same legal group that did Masterpiece Bake Shop and a ton of other cases that have been anti-LGBT. So this is a big national organization that is all about challenging equality for the LGBTIQA community, right? So
Mm-hmm.
so I have a quote here. According to the Alliance Defending Freedom, Born Again Used Books, a family-owned bookstore in Colorado Springs, is challenging a state law that recently redefined gender expression to include how an individual chooses to be addressed, meaning pronouns and titles based on gender identity rather than biological sex. So their argument being that forcing, quote unquote, forcing this couple to refer to a customer by their chosen name, because that is not true, right? Biological sex is immutable, and people don't get to choose their gender. Yeah, so I don't know where this case is going to go, but it's been filed in district court.
Mm-hmm.
And so if the district court judge affirms the statute, the Colorado statute, so finds against the couple, they'll appeal it up to the circuit, which I forget which we are, maybe the 11th. And if that goes against them again, it's going to work its way up to SCOTUS. And we pretty much know where that's going to go,
We
right?
know where
And
that's going to
so
go. Yeah.
it's just this, once again, you and I have talked about this before, this
Mm-mm-mm.
equality and equity for members of the LGBTQIA community
Mm-hmm.
versus a perceived infraction or violation of
The
the
possibility of
right, the
perceived.
possibility of, yeah, right, it hasn't even happened yet. The First
Yeah.
Amendment, free speech and freedom of religion, right? And every time this goes to the Supreme Court, at least in recent history, the freedom of speech, freedom of religion wins
Wins. Yep.
over advancing equality for a marginalized group, right? Like, so when we're,
Mm-hmm.
so it's more important that we don't tread on freedom of speech, freedom of religion. But who cares whether that impacts negatively this marginalized group that doesn't have a ton of political power
That's
and
right.
is, the fall guy for a lot of things, right? And I am
Mm-hmm.
just at a loss, Shaunna, as to why these effing cases keep coming out of Colorado. Like,
Colorado. Right,
just
right, right.
shameful. So anyway,
Oh.
so I have this, I think I texted you like Colorado strikes again. So I'm wondering what your thoughts are on this.
Well, I'm wondering why the preemptive strike, right? I'm still trying to understand why the preemptive strike,
Mm-hmm.
meaning just in case y'all trying to come over here with something we don't agree with, let's go ahead and spend whatever money or take up whatever case. They probably aren't even spending money on this because
No, no.
it's just the vendetta of the firm to do so.
Mm-hmm.
But just in case y'all try to come over here versus because here's my thing. If I were, let's say, the web design company or a bakery or what have you, and even if I held those very same beliefs, I would be so busy running my business that I don't have time to preemptively
Mm-hmm.
preclude you from my business. And furthermore, if I'm clear on communicating my values and so forth, whether it's through my website or through other media, social media of my business, then the very folks I'm trying to protect myself from having to serve as patrons wouldn't be attracted to my ass anyway. If
Mm-hmm.
I'm very
Mm-hmm.
clear that I'm anti-LGBT as a baker, then LGBT couples, LGBT families, etc., wouldn't even approach my business anyway. Especially a bakery where, God forbid, somebody would put something in
Right,
something that
right.
someone's going to eat. Like it does not make sense. And so, Lisa, I am still struck by the. I don't even know if this is cruelty is the point anymore. I think it is. Gosh, overreach is not the right word for it, Lisa. It is grand leaping conclusions that don't need to happen, that don't compromise your values because the very people, it's almost like reverse psychology. The very people that you're trying to repel, you're now attracting to
Mm-hmm.
have their stance and access. Um, and so for me, like, what's it was something ironic that I noted when you told me about this particular case. So it's, oh, I remember. The name of the bookstore is literally, y'all, check this irony for those of you all who are part of the LGBTQ plus community or study, support, are allies to them. The damn name of the bookstore is Born Again Used
Mm-hmm.
Books.
Mm-hmm.
Born Again Used Books. Now, I was sharing with Lisa when she brought this up that obviously, born again use books, I understand where they're pulling this for. They're pulling this from Holy Scripture, from John 3:16, that is often used as a point of confession in your belief in Jesus Christ and your ability to be born again as a result of your newfound relationship with Jesus. That's one thing. And it's almost like a double entendre, Lisa. You don't have to be religious to understand how being born again can be directly related to LGBTQ plus communities, because those are individuals who are constantly dead named, constantly told how they can or cannot present themselves, constantly trying to emerge almost like a butterfly out of a life that really hasn't been fully theirs to begin with, in
Right.
order to be fully born into who they are. And
Mm-hmm.
so the irony of your freaking bookstore talking about being born again, whereas your case is trying to prevent individuals from doing that very thing.
Yeah.
Problematic. Problematic. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son, that whoever believed in him should not perish, but should have everlasting life. Life, everlasting life, life forever, the life that you choose, the life that, are you kidding me? I mean, the entire bookstore's name is about life. And what you're telling us is that you don't care about certain lives.
Right.
That's what you're telling us by even pursuing the possibility of this happening, tells us that you only care about specific lives,
Yeah.
usually
And it's,
white and
yeah.
Christian and
Yeah.
mostly male and straight.
Well, and cisgender. Yeah. I mean,
Yes, yes, yes.
it's like
Incredible.
you want the legal right to insult people, right? You want the
That's a
legal
great way to put
right
it.
to
Yes, yes, yes.
actively harm people, right? Because you have to misgender or dead name
Hmm.
someone intentionally. So you
Intentionally,
have
that's
to be
right.
doing it knowing that that intentional act is likely to cause harm to someone. You want the legal right to do that? Like, and I think I texted you something like, so much for love thy neighbor, right? Like, and
There you go. Yeah,
the
yeah,
other
yeah.
thing is like, if I am a
Hmm.
trans person going into this bookstore, how is, and you don't know me, like, how are we even going to get into a situation where you call me by where you dead name me, right? Like, you're not gonna, how
Hmm.
are you even gonna do that? Like, so
Hmm.
yeah, so it's just so asinine to me and so cruel, and like your right to, so you want the right to be a shithead, you know what I mean? Like your free speech, you want the right to speak harmfully about other people and not value their individuality and their needs and identities. That's what you want. Like, how does that
Hmm.
make you Christian? I mean, I'm not right Christian, but but I maybe I naively have this idea of what it means to be Christian, given the Christian people who are in my life
Hmm.
would not be doing this lawsuit, right?
Well, and here's the rub. Here's the rub right here, Lisa, that you're bringing up that is so important, so that we're not leaning into monoliths. Knowing you, Lisa, for the last however many years we've known each other now, knowing you so well, I guarantee you that unfortunately, the majority of Christians that you surround yourself with, that you share common values with, that you see eye to eye with, that you deem worthy of friendship with,
Mm-hmm.
the majority of those Christians are the minority of overall Christianity, especially in this country. I guarantee it, Lisa. I
Really?
guarantee it. I guarantee it. Based
Hmm.
on my experience as literally being born in the church, I was saved at 12 years old. I went to Christian seminaries. I've been in Christian settings quite a bit of my time. And I have only in the last, I would suggest, 2 to 3 years, have found a community that even got close to resembling what I think Christianity truly is.
Hmm. Hmm.
That's just
Okay.
the truth of the matter. It just it has it and that's not coming, y'all, from a place of what we call church hurt, where it's, I've been hurt by one or two people in the church, so I'm trying to hit back. No, that's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying based on fundamental things that I've seen in Christian experiences I, of course, have not seen perfection, obviously, because we're humans. Churches are built with human beings, not edifices. But even with those individuals, I have only seen the closest version of what I think everlasting life looks like in the last couple of years. So what is that? 47, well, my whole life really, but since I became more serious, 47 minus 12, 35. So it's taken 33 years to find
Mm.
anything that even got close.
Well, that's quite sobering.
Yeah. Or 33, even 33 years to find anything that got close to uh Dr. King's description of the beloved community, barely scratching the surface of that after 33 years. That's
Yeah.
just the truth of the
So,
matter. So I'm singing the praises of your other friends that
yeah.
I don't know that may identify as Christian because I know you and I know you don't attract bullshit. I'm just letting you know that you just don't. And so with that, you probably have a certain type of religious individuals around you, and they're not going to fit into these other extremist categories of this born again bookstore type.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it just makes me really sad, right? We
Mm-hmm.
try to pass laws
Mm-hmm.
that protect people who have been harmed and excluded, and then groups of
Yeah.
people who are not harmed, at least not for their religion, or
Mm-hmm.
excluded, are turning around and saying, "No, ma'am, this, I don't want this group of people to have equal rights. I don't want this group of people to
Mm-hmm.
be treated as human beings and as valuable people on this earth. I want what I want." And I think it's just
Mm-hmm.
emblematic of the kind of culture that we find ourselves in this moment, although obviously some of those other cases that we talked about predated this moment. But
Oh yeah,
the
for sure.
I'll
Mm-hmm.
just I'll end here with the there's a piece, every bill, not every bill, many bills have legislative declarations, and this one
Yeah.
says the General Assembly finds and declares that each Coloradan has the right to access fair employment, housing opportunities, public accommodations, and advertising that is free from discrimination, regardless of their membership in a protected class. And it goes on and says some other bits and pieces. But public accommodation, the bookstore would fall under public
Public
accommodations because
accommodation.
it's a
Mm-hmm.
retail service for
Ah, gotcha.
outside people. But
Mm-hmm.
why
Mm-hmm.
is that so? Why is that desire that each Coloradan should have the right to access fair XYZ, right, and not experience
Mm-hmm.
discrimination? Why does that not apply? Why should that not apply to the LGBT QIA community? Why should it only apply to white, cisgender, straight Christian
Mm-hmm.
people, right? Like, why aren't we grappling with that? You know?
Well,
So,
here's the thing. I'll throw this in here real quick because I want to give a different perspective on that. I agree 100% with why shouldn't that apply to everyone. I'm trying to force myself to think as the bookstore owners.
okay.
Forcing myself to try to think from their perspective, I'm imagining that they're saying, at best, at best, all they're saying is, yeah, it may apply to you, but it should apply to me more. So if it comes down to one of us getting rights or the other, I'm fighting for mine, regardless of what you
Okay.
lose. So it's not like there's a big enough pie for all of us to have access. It's the scarcity model of power that, oh, if you get a little bit of power, then I lose all mine because I don't
Mm-hmm.
want partial, I want all. And so it's literally like thinking about, let's say, God forbid, two people are hungry, instead of sharing, what they're saying is, yeah, I would love for you to eat. I would love for all of us to eat, but it's not going to be all. It's going to be either or. And so if it has to be either or, it's going to be mine.
Mm-hmm.
And so it just feels like this scarcity model of power, which
Yeah.
keeps empowerment in place.
Yeah.
You can't have power without me losing something, so I'm not giving you an inch. Come on, y'all.
Yeah. Yeah. I
At
think you're right.
best, now at worst, I think it's just flat out cruelty. But at best, it's who's going to win out on this power dynamic. I'm less concerned with you losing power. I'm more concerned with me winning power.
Yeah, like so power is a zero-sum game. Like we can't all, like your desire for equal and civil rights does not mean that I have any less equal or civil rights, but that I interpret it as I'm losing if you're winning, right?
Exactly. I'm losing
Yeah.
if you're winning. Exactly. And they don't want to, like, I'm imagining, especially for those that are, I mean, truly staunch about this, is based on principle. I would rather uh bankrupt and completely lose my entire bookstore than lose the right to tell you that you're not welcome to shop at my bookstore.
Yeah,
I'd
that's
rather
so
not have
messed
it,
up.
because that's exactly what, think about any other social justice issue in this country that's ever happened
Mm-hmm.
where, think about board versus education. I would rather shut the whole school down where nobody
Yeah.
gets to go to school if I let one little black girl in here. That's
Yeah.
what they meant. They
Yeah.
meant what they said. It is literally, I would rather this whole ship go down than to let you live.
Mm-hmm.
That
Mm-hmm.
that is the preference. We saw the same thing. I know I'm going down the political train, but we saw the same thing with Kamala Harris. There's a number of videos that talked about people that unfortunately that are losing their health care, obviously, and other things that are happening to them. And they were specifically asked, they were Trump supporters, they voted for Trump, and they were specifically asked after an interview, if you could go back and decide based on this whole medical debacle
Mm-hmm.
with healthcare, if you could go back, would you vote differently? And they still would not vote
And they
differently,
wouldn't do
Lisa.
it. Yeah.
This woman stood there on video and say, I would rather die and allow my special needs daughter to die than to vote for a black woman.
She actually expressly said to vote for a black woman?
She said, she was asked specifically, would you vote differently if you knew that healthcare was going to happen this way? And she said, no, I would not have voted differently. She said she would either vote for him again or not vote at all, but
Or
she
not
never
vote?
once said that she would vote for her.
I think that's a lot of people who are getting buyer's remorse. They're not moving
Yes.
to the Dems or to Kamala specifically. They are saying,
Yes.
I just wouldn't have voted. I just wouldn't have voted.
Wouldn't have voted at all. Yep,
Yeah.
exactly. Exactly. Oh, Lisa, I mean, I would love to come out and visit you, but I'm gonna need you to come out here and visit me first with all this going on.
Yeah. Yeah. You got to wonder. I mean, I know this is a
Good
minority of
gracious.
people, but this
Of course,
minority of
yeah.
people have the loudest voices and they have a shit ton of power.
Man,
Yeah.
look, they got megaphones at their mouths at this point. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
they're the ones that we hear most often, right? So,
Yeah.
oh, all right. Well, let's wrap it up for today. Thank you, thank you, thank you for tuning in to another episode of Unfazed, Unedited. You certainly can reach us on all of your social media and podcast apps at Unfazed, Unedited with the brackets around the first un. You can email us at info@unfazedpodcast.com or visit us at our website, unfazedpodcast.com, to access the 200 plus now episodes of the pod. So if you like this week, subscribe, leave a review, certainly share with a bunch of folks, coworkers, or others in this phase of your life. So, Dr. Lisa, until next week.
All right. Until next week. See you, folks.